Release from a dreadful long-term imprisonment usually marks a new beginning for most. On the contrary, Mohlele's protagonist in Small Things is on a collision course with himself, i.e. frustration, anger, and disappointment. The protagonist's love tangle with Desiree and Mercedes is baptism of fire. Hello amazing people, Takiramashi here. A warm welcome to my channel, a place where future leaders come to get inspired. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. I'd like to say thank you so much for those who spotted an error in the previous video. For that reason, I've taken and pulled it down, and I'm trying to readapt this one, and I hope it's going to work out alright. My focus on this one is going to be examining the love clash theme between Mohlele's hero and two women in his life, Desiree and Mercedes. Furthermore, to delve deeper into how the writer conveys the protagonist's cocktail of hot and cold emotions towards his lovers. In readinglist.click site, the protagonist in Small Things is described as, open quotes, the story of a dreamer and average man singled out by fate for an uncertain life. Jailed for 18 years under apartheid for unspecified sins, he emerges into a world that has no place for him. His fluctuating fortunes land him on the unpredictable, bitter winter streets of Johannesburg, where the homelessness is an unfortunate trait, but the tempestuous skylines offer space to breathe. A trumpet and an indigent dog are his accomplices in survival. But it is his obsessive love for the erratic, hard-hearted Desiree that remains the one constant in his life and impels his search for the elusive meaning of existence. Close quotes. This tutorial has been broken into 3 parts. Part 1, the protagonist's internal tension, that is the 18-year arrest and its significance. Part 2, his immortal love and desire for Desiree, the insane. Part 3, bittersweet choice between Desiree and Mercedes. Finally, in this last section, we reflect on the profound influences two women had on the protagonist. Without any further delay, let's get straight to it. Just as a footnote, this particular slide is just going to look at this question: how does love for Desiree and Mercedes add to the protagonist's internal conflict? You would recall that this was what was given for you to analyze in your assignment. So I won't really be going into much detail or even read it. I've highlighted some of the words in different colors so that they stand out for you. But it is important that we link this part where he's actually reflecting about what has actually happened to him and think about the way the author or the writer Mohlele, how he introduces the main character and what devices he uses. As you can see here, I'll just mention a few. If the narrator is speaking to himself, we would assume that that is a soliloquy, that is one of the strategies that or devices that the writer uses to bring about surprise and suspense. He also uses a lot of dramatic surprise as well, because it opens with the narrator thinking about the 18 years of punishment. And if you go down, you'll also see in the second paragraph, he also highlights the significance of that interrogation that happens between him and or by Major Juppé and the kind of warnings that is given there. So it brings in a lot of the writer uses actually a lot of techniques or devices, or brings a lot of devices into this, so you can actually connect this properly. Remember the idea of Animal Farm, which is a failed revolution, and Franz Kafka, Kafkaesque, which is about a character was arrested for a crime that is not named, just like in this case, an unspecified apartheid crime. And furthermore, as the paragraph closes or concludes, it talks about existence of gun-wielding thugs. If you read this book, you would have noted the introduction of dark figure who shot him, and really there is no explanation as to why that happened to him, but he mentions thugs that emerge out of nowhere demanding things, dark figure who emerges from nowhere, just like the state police, apartheid police at the time. So all these factors put together build up internally. This is like an internal monologue, something that the main character is doing. That's happening in his mind, in his brain. But let's see what other factors contribute to his conflict. So we'll see that in the next section. In this section, I've just put together a few examples of the protagonist's internal tension. His 18-year jail term under the apartheid unspecified sentence, which earlier, as we spoke about in my previous video, we spoke about Kafka SK. That's arrest, for detention without trial, if you like. And this obviously puts more burden on the narrator or the protagonist. And this I think I refer to as an example of internal conflict. You would need to write more or deeper by quoting, sections of the novel to highlight where exactly this happens, so that, you give your story a bit of meat. And then the next bit there is actually interrogating, is questioning, is imprisonment. And I think that's an example of internal conflict through what I refer to as internal monologue or soliloquy. And also there is the foreshadowing that the Mohlele, the author, uses during the interrogation by Major Joubert, and stroke the introduction of dark figure. The last one there, when he confronts the harsh reality of homelessness, joblessness, and the smallness on the unpredictable, bitter winter streets of Johannesburg, that's an example of external conflict. And all those ideas linked together cause more conflict for the narrator. I've included this section for you to see how the narrator's internal conflict is actually developed throughout the novel. And I was actually, as I pointed out earlier, specifically focusing on love. The protagonist's fading fortunes of love, that's what I called it. Quotes of passion, pain, and departure. DESIREE and Mercedes. So these passages that you see on the right hand side are taken under DESIREE, or rather they are words or passages that match the tempestuous DESIREE. And the examples there, if you read, you will see how these examples add to the narrator's conflict. This is important. Remember the passage that we had earlier, which was given for the assignment, and it did ask us to be very specific about how that is developed through other themes or linked to other themes. So this is what you could use if you were to be asked this question again in the exam, and I expect it might come in another form. Part 2 it is, and this is a protagonist's immortal love and desire for DESIREE. Again, I've highlighted here for you that this is what I refer to external conflict, which impacts on the protagonist or the main character. The hopeless and obsessive love for the erratic, hard-hearted DESIREE leaves him volatile, The love he ever wanted seems to be passing him by. Desiree's mood swings plunges the protagonist further into a dark, deep corner. The emergence of Amazu in Desiree's life intensifies his hurt and pain, not least the mental tug-of-war between him and Amazu. And Desiree's death brings temporary relief for the protagonist, but not real answers. Here I've just given examples of passages that I've collected in the novel under Mercedes. I call it Merciful Mercedes because Mercedes is a Spanish word for Lady of Mercy. So you can read yourself what some of the words, some of the quotations have to do with the main character and how that affects him. If you look at the very last one there, he says, I confuse orders, forget basic waiter courtesies, sulk at justified patron protests. So he's beginning to forget because of his confusion, his resentment about Mercedes, who's no longer in the country, so on and so forth. So but that's for you to actually read, but that's really important that you note where these quotes are and how they link to the internal conflict of the main character, what is causing him pain. And finally, the bittersweet choice between Desiree and Mercedes, another example of external conflict and how this is developing throughout the novel. We know now at this point that Mercedes has left back to Cuba. Her father is aging, not very happy with her relationship with the narrator. Desiree is unwell. Eventually she dies. And everything is just spiraling out of control. So I've just put down all those key points for you to look at. I'm not going to read them, just so that this video is not too long. Thank you for watching my video. Remember to subscribe. I'll be working on the next one with a couple more themes and pointers for revision. Don't miss it.